Okay, and we're recording. So Chris, you can go ahead and get started.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for coming. Today we're going to talk about some standards that we've set forth regarding our checking folder structure, kind of how we name our folders, and you'll see. Okay. So first of all, no matter what job you have in this company, communication is the most important thing that we do. If you break down what you do, whether it's shop drawings, whether it's fabrication, everything that we're doing is just simply communication to the next person. And consistency is key. That's why we create a Swiss. That's why we create standards, have a standards team. We're better when we're the same all the way through. So following our standards is important. So here is an excerpt from our PC checking Kaizen checklist. We met for, I don't know how long, we met for an awfully long time developing a list of everything that we do as checkers. And so when it comes to our folder structure, one of the things that we had established is that as you finish a folder, an underscore after the file name, meaning unit underscore, indicates that that unit is checked. And then add a, in parentheses, 4-4 underscore checked after the folder name to indicate that that entire folder has been checked. So communicating the project status is not only for you, but it just communicates to the whole team. So I have 3 separate pieces of information here. I'll start with the weekly plan report on the left. This particular one's for Santana West. Down here, you can see from the unit tracker, we've listed every single week on the job. And in parentheses after that week, we list the total number of unique units that we'll have to fab. So I know week 1 is a little bit heavier lifting. Week 4 looks like that's going to be an easy one. So it helps us give an overall perspective of how long we're going to be working on this. As fabs start rolling in, you can see like units week 1 and then 89 in parentheses. So on this particular job, it's one of the jobs where we have decided to incorporate Mulligan sets. So we're getting more units than just week 1. We're doing all the week 1 units plus any units that are very, very similar, nearly the same as units that would be on week 1. We're doing them at the same time to try to maximize our efforts. What that does is instead of 62 units, by the end of our checking in week 1, we'll have actually produced 89 units. And so you can see underneath week 1, we've got 5 groups currently. That's not all of them, but you can see that there's a parentheses after each one of these groups of units. And if the PEs, as you put in folders of units, if you guys can put that in, that's fantastic. If you don't, then I should be doing it. The project coordinator should be. But this parentheses with a unit count, a dash, and then another number that represents the number that has been counted or checked already, that should be there. So we can see in group 1, Mulligan set, these are all the Mulligan sets that are in there, underscore 19-19. This signifies that there are 19 total units in group 1, and then this 19 tells you that all of them are checked. So now our project engineers know that they can go in and make updates to those. This one, group 3, there's 10 units, but only 9 of them at that point had been checked. So there's still 1 left for checking. This one we haven't even started checking yet. Units for week 2 and week 3, if it was simply going to be these numbers, I could put that in already. But knowing that we're doing it by Mulligan set, I don't know how many added units we're going to have in just yet. It's, this one grew from 62 to 89. Week 2 is going to grow from 39 to something. So I haven't done anything about that one yet. But hopefully you kind of get the picture of what we're doing with that folder structure. And then this last bit that I put in, this last bit is from my daily log. This is in the commentary section down at the bottom. I know, again, in communicating, my job is to communicate to anyone I'm sending that daily log to what my status is. So the first thing I put down is for any job I'm working on, Santana West, the week 1 units, there's a total of 62, and you can see that matches the 62 over here. I added in a new line item on this job because of Mulligan sets. And so I said the week 1 Mulligan set units, there's a total of 89. That matches this number. And then at this point, we had received 65 units for checking, and we had checked 58 of them. So I know when I send that out at the end of the day, that anyone who looks at this is going to have a real clear picture of, okay, so 89 total, and you've got 58 done. You are, X percentage done. Not only is that helping Pete as he's managing my workflow, it's also helping me because it gives me, if I send this out on Tuesday and I know by the end of so normally we want to get week 1 units done in a week 2 units done in a week. If you're releasing units on a Friday, you're updating on Thursday. I really want to be done checking by the end of the day Wednesday. So if I know I want to be done checking by the end of the day Wednesday, and I know I've got 89 units, all right, let's say 90, that's 30 a day. If I send this out on Tuesday and I've only got 25 units done, I have a real clear problem that I can see, Pete can see that. We should be talking about that and coming up with an alternate plan of how we're going to make it happen. The old days would be, someone like Pete could ask me, hey, when are you going to have your work done? And I'd be like, I guess when it gets done, it's done. I don't really know. I don't know how much there is, and I don't know when I'm going to get done. But eventually, when the person feeding me stuff says that they're done, then I guess I'm done. And so we have so many tools now to be able to know exactly how much work we've got, and we can compare that to how much work that we've done. So these 3 things have a very direct relation to each other, and it's important that we be clear on those kinds of things, including in our logs. I see a lot of daily logs every single day, and we have some people that are really, really, they explain themselves a lot. In fact, I'm pretty sure there's some people who sends a daily log that has a higher word count than some college essays I may have done. But we also have some daily logs that they're lacking. they they might not offer very much other than my goal was to work and I worked. So use that as a communication tool. I would encourage you. So here's an example. This is again same project. You can tell that the group 1 Mulligan set is complete because this folder shows 19-19, meaning there's 19 units in the folder and 19 are checked. You can also see inside the folder to the right, every one of these has a little underscore directly to the right of it. I'm going to jump to week 4 or group 4. So you can tell that these are not complete because not only this 34-28, that leaves 6 units that are not yet checked. You can see in this lineup that right down here, there's a void of 6 units without that underscore at the end of it. So that's, both of those are a quick tell that that one is not done yet. So inconsistency and not following standard practices can lead to confusion by the project engineer or other project coordinators that get added to your project, and your manager who does look at these folder structures for updates. I know that Pete and I have had conversations about that, and he said he does look at these folder structures to see, what our status is. So this is one example of just a confusing folder structure. This is one I had heard about recently. So the very top, you can see that there were 4 weeks. The last one says 39-39 and checked. That kind of implies that with these other 3, maybe we haven't began checking yet. We might not even have units on those yet. So when you look into, and I have, underneath what we were showing. So when you see like week 1, we have this folder, it says 10-0. Well, there were 10 units in there. The 0 implies that nothing has been checked, but yet all of them look like they've been checked. Week 2, same thing. Week 2 didn't offer the totals here, but these offered totals that showed it looked like they were both completed. Week 3, I just grabbed one of these underneath, but you can see these all did say checked, and they said, these had their totals down here, not in the week 3 folder part, but down beneath. But then this is where it kind of started to change even more in the week 4. So we had the totals on this one for the first time. And underneath these numbers all add up to that 39. But I just clicked on one folder and now these happen to have underscores. And so where it gets confusing for, let's say that I get added into a project or you get added into a project, and if somebody's doing it a different way, as you're doing your work, you start to wonder, okay, wait a minute. Am I supposed to follow the format that you're doing, or am I supposed to follow the standard? And as a project engineer, as you're trying to look at these to figure out, well, which one signifies to me that they're done? These over here don't say checked and these do. We start giving inconsistent messages to the team. And the most important thing that we do is that we clearly communicate our status with each other. So some excerpts, other excerpts from our PC checking Kaizen. This one talks about as you've checked a unit, we have a Bluebeam session called Project Key Sheets. And in Project Key Sheets, you'll open it up. It's going to show all of our unit numbers. Let me just go to it. It's going to look like this. And as I check a unit, let's say this unit 481 down near the bottom center, what I need to do is I need to search that unit number in this upper left-hand corner where it says U500. And then down here, I'm going to get every location that that unit happens. So as you look at this, you can see every unit on this sheet has been highlighted yellow, except for this U500. That's the one I was currently checking. So when I searched for U500, it showed me the one location. I can click on this box, click on this little lightning bolt and go down to highlight checked, and then it will highlight that unit as being complete. So that's one more of the ways that we had established to communicate to the PE and to other project coordinators that may be checking along with us that this unit's been done. Another great way for this is you can see this unit 482, it's a 1'6" wide unit. This unit 83 is a 2'6" wide unit, and they have some minor differences, but all in all, the parts in this unit are going to be very similar to the parts in this unit. So if I am starting to check unit 83 and I see that someone else has checked unit 482, I can probably save time by grabbing unit 482, looking at what's been done, and do a comparison on unit 83 and check faster than if I just check everything from scratch. So having this unit highlighted will tell me, okay, this is a similar unit and it's already been checked. If it wasn't highlighted, then I wouldn't necessarily know that that's something I can, I'll probably check unit 83 from scratch. So you can see why that's a beneficial tool. So to summarize, we have numerous ways to communicate amongst the team. Use these ways to communicate information. Please do not just check a box. Um, Make sure that, whatever it is you feel like you can communicate to your team, which is again, the most important thing that we do, use those things that way. Please follow the standards that we have. And then, this stands for every single person. You guys have all been through lean classes. Unused employee genius is one of those facets of lean. And if you don't like our standards, that's okay. Speak up. We PDCA everything that we do. And if we need to change the ways that we do things, I think every one of us is open to that. But it's not okay to just kind of do it our own ways. We need to be doing it consistently together. So understand that you're part of a team that relies on communication. So I know that was pretty short, but that's what I wanted to talk about today. So anyone have any questions on any of that?
Okay, thank you, Chris. Any feedback, questions for Chris? So just to follow up, we might be doing some slight changes to some of the preliminary folder structure. We're working in the setup team. We're creating a Swiss for how we're developing folders there. Previously, you probably saw the prototypes, final fabs, and PDFs folder that we're changing to phase 1. So on some of the more recent projects, Lumen, Santana West, and then Pedro setting up UCI right now, you'll start to see that we're shifting where we're putting the setup units. So when you're using those as the back check for your normal checking process, they'll be in different folders than what you're used to. So that's just a heads up that that'll be coming your way as well.
Mhm. Okay, anybody else? For anyone that's been working with Mulligan sets, anyone have any thoughts on, how we had at the beginning, we talked about like this 62 versus this 89. I know at the beginning of on Santana West, the way that Eric was turning in was slightly different than how we're doing it right now. And he had, I thought, good reason for choosing to do it the way that he did. But in the end, we chose to try to keep it consistent and just go solely by unit counts because that's the way that we check. So anyways.
I have a comment on the Mulligan sets. If you
Mhm.
go by week, it kind of defeats the purpose, or if, you lose the benefit of doing it by Mulligan sets. So if you're like here, it says units week 01, and then you're grouping it by Mulligan sets, you're kind of missing out on the other units on that same Mulligan set, but on a different week.
So this way, it may be just worded weird, Chris, but what we're doing is we are doing the Mulligan sets that touch week 1, but we're doing every unit that's within those Mulligan sets that are similar to that. So we won't just be doing, so that 89 represents all of the 62 week 1 units, but all of the similar units that would be in those Mulligan sets. So we're not leaving anything out of those Mulligan sets to be done later. The only ones we're leaving out are units that are part of Mulligan sets that would not have been touched on week 1.
Okay.
Yeah, because we're just kind of crunched on time. That's why we're prioritizing week 1 first. That's why I was asking, like, in our 9 o'clock, right, about like, oh, how did you guys approach it with the Lumen? Because you guys were doing it a little differently. And for Santana West, we're kind of, getting to the point where we would need production. So we're like, okay, let's prioritize week 1 first, but still kind of do with Mulligan sets. And for the production wise, Edgar could probably speak on this too. Like, I find it pretty helpful. Just grouping them all together, doing them all at one time, because you're doing very, very similar units. And then I think yesterday Edgar was timing and he was doing like 6-minute, like for most of the typical units. Granted, the setup was pretty good too. So
Yeah, we have similar experience on Lumen where being able to do them by Mulligan sets is easier to create and be able to process them through checking because you're looking at all the similar things.
yeah, the one thing that I did come across was like when I was kind of going specific, like the piano key wall. I would do like a Mulligan set, and then I find myself had to jump all the way to the end, right? Because in my mind, I'm still kind of thinking like, oh, let me just finish off the elevation. So it still takes a little bit of adjustment. Like, oh, do I finish off the elevation, or do I just finish this Mulligan set, group them together, set out for checking, and then the next one, which finishes off the Mulligan, the elevation, would be like a different group. So I was kind of debating on which one. Like, if you see right here, group 4 has 34 units. So that last 5 Mulligan sets could very well be just group 5, but I was kind of debating which one to do it. So still kind of working out the kinks on how to group them together.
Do we have a filter in the program to filter it by Mulligan set, or we have to manually filter it?
Not right now. At least I don't think so. I mean, from my experience, like how I adapted what the Lumen team was doing was I would print out the Mulligan set for the whole job, then print out the Mulligan set report just for that week. And then I will look at what's on week 1, and then write down Mulligan sets, and then go and then refer back to the Mulligan set for the whole job, and then do all those units for that Mulligan set. right? Like I may have 2 units for week 1 for that one particular Mulligan set, but for the whole job I have like 18, but I'll do all the 18. So
Yeah, it would be best if we had a you didn't start this that Mulligan set method like
Yeah.
1 or 2 weeks before the
Mhm.
weekly fab, because that's not enough time.
Yeah.
The nice thing about Mulligan sets is you don't have the duplicate units
Mhm.
when you're looking at it by week. We're currently looking by week. We don't have to print out duplicate units for the PCs to check because there's no such thing on Mulligan sets.
agreed.
So I would even
week 1 could be pretty big this way. So
Yeah, like this, like you see here, right? It grew.
Totally, it's probably will be easy and easy and easy week 2, week 3, but week 1 could be very heavy. So yeah, it would be nice if we could start it a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
But like what Chris was saying, right? Ideally, we wouldn't want to start so late. So like the idea is like get everything done even before, it hits. So by the time we have to do weekly releases, you really don't have to do anything. Because I think for Lumen, they're really going down the list of the Mulligan sets and then just knocking down Mulligan sets. That's what Christian was doing. But I don't want to speak on his experience, so I'll let them speak on that a little bit more.
I'm wondering, so when you print the Mulligan sets per week and you print the Mulligan sets per job, is the number for the set stays the same? Is it like let's say set 12 on week 1 shows just 2 units? It will be the set number 12 for its number is consistent, right?
Yeah, it will be the same. Like it just takes your perimeter, all the families on the outside, and it takes consideration all your horizontals too.
So the group is the grouping it to the same group
number
all the same all the time, no matter what is your filter.
Yep.
That's good. Yeah, maybe we can, if we're going this way, maybe we can request to create a filter like this so we can print it, because I see it's still kind of a lot of human error possible here on printing.
Well, for the Mulligan sets, if you look at it per job, there are always a different count. On Lumen, it was like 240 something. But if you go down that list, like each Mulligan set is not very different from the one previous or next to it or after it, until it gets to like maybe the 5th or 6th group, then it completely changes.
Oh, really? So it actually groups them in similarities one after another?
Yeah,
like
that's how
each next one is more different. Huh, that's interesting.
Until it's completely different. And so you can group it that way. So for like on Luminar, Mulligan sets 1 through 5, they're only different by one family. And so when you do the fabs, they're very similar. And then Mulligan set 6 is completely different set of families. And so we'll say 1 through 5 is one group. That way you don't have to print 5 folders. It'll just be one folder with very similar type logic for 1 through 5.
So I'm going to bring this back, and not that I'm not fascinated by Mulligan sets. I am. I've enjoyed checking them that way. I really have. But for this subject, we're talking about kind of the way that we organize our folders and the way that we communicate to the team. So I just want to circle back around to that. I would even say, as you're checking field use, as people are producing field use, we still want a way of accounting for that. So if there are 15 elevation sheets of field use fabs and you get those, I can be reporting back and saying, I'm just checking, and nobody has any idea of my status. Or I can say, there's 15 sheets of elevations of field use fabs, and I've received 4 and I've checked 3 of them. And then now the team knows where I'm at. So I would encourage you to use a similar type of logic on anything that you're doing. That's why we do it. That's why we send daily logs. That's why we have a weekly plan report. It's why we have a daily stand-up, to be able to check in with the team and clearly communicate to each other what it is that we're doing and what our status is. So I'd encourage you guys to, institute a similar type of logic, even if it's a one-off thing that you're doing that hasn't been something that we've discussed. there's got to be some way of being able to articulate how many of those things you have, how many you've received, how many you're done, and just to be able to communicate to your team, the person checking your work or the person that's going to be assigning your next task would find that information important. So
Is there um, a consensus on how to sort the field views by sheets or by elevations, or is that just up to just per project?
I don't think that there is any consensus at this point. It probably depends on the project itself, and you know how complicated the job is, how much field use there is.
I think the field use is always kind of preferable to release in one chunk. So kind of because it's a lot of stuff is intertwined and continuous and kind of like you kind of need to know where you're turning, where you're going, kind of like it's nice to check all together, but I guess if it is a big project, it could be split. But usually I think it makes sense to have it in one chunk because it's one big connected thing.
But you're talking, we would release it in one, but we don't necessarily
check-
receive it.
For chicken, I think it's also better at one. If I know you not necessarily will get it that way.
Yeah,
But
I don't think it's very common that we get 100% of field use fabs all at once.
oh really?
Yeah, I don't.
Oh.
Okay, any other questions, anybody? Comments? Concerns? Okay.
right. Very good. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. Good information.
Golf clap.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks,
Chris.
Chris.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chris.
Good job, Chris.